Hello, everyone. Welcome to webinar with Magoosh. My name is Veronica, or V, and I will be answering some really great questions from our Discord, and also any questions that you have as well. I'll get to those after. So I'm just gonna wait for everyone to get settled, probably another 2 minutes. So let me know if you can hear me. That would be great. Go ahead and drop that in the chat if you can hear me. And if you can, also let me know where you're coming in from. I would love to know. Yes, you could hear. Awesome. Austin, Texas. Very cool. Okay, great. Okay, so glad you all can hear me. New Jersey. Very cool. Where are you all tuning in from? Seattle, Washington, West Coast. Actually, wait, barely. Las Vegas, Mississippi, San Diego, Bogota, Colombia, right? I was there one time. India, Mexico City, orale. I love Mexico City. Ghana, Nigeria, LA, Jordan. Oh my God, this is amazing. Very, very cool. Buenos Aires, India. Okay, this is beautiful. Well, thank you for joining. I mean, I know we are all in different time zones, so I want to be mindful of that. And I want to do my very best to answer these questions. So what I would recommend is go ahead and pay attention to the questions I do answer, and then we'll jump into what is left after that. And hopefully have a discussion that is generative for all of you and applicable for where you are in your application journey right now, wherever that may be. Okay, so yeah, it's 12:03 where I'm at. I'm in the Bay Area in California, San Francisco Bay Area. So it's 12:03 over here, and I'm gonna go ahead and jump in. Now, I will say, if you have a question and you just want to go ahead and drop it into the Q&A, please go ahead and do that. But I really recommend you put your questions into the Q&A because it will be a little hard for me to kind of sort through questions in the chat. So go ahead and make sure you know where the Q&A is so that you can drop a question in there, and that'll be a lot easier for me to manage and get through them, okay? So I'm going to start with the first question that I see here. It says, when contacting, actually, let me tell you a little bit about myself before I jump into that so you know who you're talking to. So like I said, my name is Veronica, or V. I am a graduate student now. I'm going into my 4th year. I'm working on a PhD in the humanities. It's in ethnic studies. I'm at the University of California at Santa Barbara. I'm going into my 4th year of probably 6 to 7 years. So I'm getting ready to start actually writing the dissertation this year, which is very exciting. I feel like I'm over the hump a little bit and kind of just moving into, I guess, the more challenging portion. But I'm ready for it. Okay, so when contacting school directors of the programs I'm applying to, how do I ask questions about funding and grants for students? I'm still not sure how funding works for grad students, what we should expect, so I don't know what kind of questions to be asking. This is a great question. So this is something you can ask to, any professor that you might be interested in working with directly, in the sense of how funding works within the department, because it works differently for every single department. So this isn't something that you can kind of know from the website. It really depends on the funding for that year. So what I would recommend, if you're considering if a program is going to be viable for you because you don't know how the funding works, I would, one, recommend reaching out to graduate students, current graduate students in that department, because they probably have the best idea of how funding is working overall within the program and probably for the past few years. So I would definitely recommend contacting graduate students. If you can, just look on the website and see who is a current graduate student now, and see if you can connect and send an email and just basically let them know that you're interested in applying, what you're interested in studying, just generally making a friendly connection. And if they're responsive, I would recommend asking them about funding, how funding has been for them, what kind of funding packages the department usually offers. And most often they'll be interested in discussing that with you, because it's just a very real part of being a graduate student. It's funding. It's everybody needs to be able to know what to expect. So I would recommend reaching out to current graduate students. Now, if you're already certain that you're going to apply to a program because you have an idea of how that funding works, maybe you have some professors that you're actually interested in working with. I would also send a friendly email to professors if you can, asking about that too. Not right away. Don't just right off the bat ask about funding. I would introduce myself out of formality. And then once the conversation is going and you let them know, this is what I'm interested in studying and this is why, perhaps you can then ask, and I'm also interested in what funding packages the department offers. Now, this is something that not every professor is interested in doing. There certainly are some professors who simply do not talk to graduate students until they've already been accepted. So your best option is to reach out to current grad students in the department. And then also don't forget, you can contact admissions at the university and you can ask them, what are funding packages like in, say, sociology, and especially if it's a bigger department, it's probably a little bit more transparent. I am in a much smaller department. We only have about 12 faculty members. So that's pretty small in comparison to something like, 30 to 40 faculty members in some departments. So I reached out to current graduate students and asked about that. And my department particularly will not bring on graduate students unless they can fully fund them. So some things like that will be very transparent, but it's not always that way. Okay, so I hope that answers that question. And as far as not being sure how funding works for graduate students, I think most people are a little unclear on that because we're not certain if we're going to need to be on loans, if we're going to receive grants, if we're going to receive fellowships. I mean, it's really all up in the air. And the good part is that there's a lot of different ways to receive funding. So it's good to ask professors, graduate students, and then contact the head of the department, whether that's the chair or an actual admissions expert in the department. If you can find who that is on the website, that would be a really good way to go about that. Okay. The next question is, if we want to contact a faculty member in a program, is it advised to email them directly or ask someone from admissions to connect you? So I just want to pause real quick and just let you all know that I only have 6 questions from Discord. As soon as I get through those, I will get through the ones in the Q&A. Okay, so I think we definitely have enough time to get to all of them. And before I jump into this question that's also related to the one that I just answered, I see a question from Patricia here in the chat saying, when you refer to funding packages, what are you talking about? Grants and scholarships and loans? Yes, thank you. Let me clarify what a funding package is. So for instance, I'll give you an example about my funding package. I received 6 quarters. My program is on the quarter system, not the semester system, which means we have 3 quarters in the year and then we have the summer quarter. So I received 4 fully funded quarters, which means I'm getting paid while I'm doing my research. They're paying me, so that pays my bills, that pays my rent, and they pay my tuition. Now, 4 quarters is not all I'm doing, right? I'm doing a lot more than that. So outside of that, I will either A, get a fellowship or a scholarship from another outside funding source, which there are plenty, and I highly recommend you start to look at those relevant to your field. Or I will be a TA, which means I'm a teaching assistant, which means I'm assisting a professor in a larger class. I'm doing the grading, I'm having, we call them sections, which is like a 50-minute section with me and, 20 or 30 students, and we're going over material. And that's how I would get paid and therefore pay my bills. So that is my funding package. But the funding package includes tuition and healthcare at my university. So my tuition will always be paid for as long as I'm either a TA, I'm on a fully funded, quarter with the funding package I received, or I'm on an external fellowship, which is something I'm on right now. I'm on an external fellowship that I applied for 2 years ago, and I'm still on it now. So I hope that answers the question as far as a funding package. That is a part of the language you could utilize. I see it as pretty common across the board to call it a funding package because it'll be a package. It'll be a mixture of you being a TA, you being a research assistant, or you being on a fully funded quarter, or you seeking a research assistantship somewhere else, plus also being a TA. It's like a combination. And I would say it's probably different for every department as far as what they have available and what they foresee being available in the near future. So I hope that's helpful. If anyone feels like you need me to slow down or clarify some terms, please just let me know. Okay, I'm trying to stay on top of the chat and the questions. So I'm going to jump to the next question that I have, which is, excuse me. If we want to contact a faculty member in a program, is it advised to email them directly or ask someone from admissions to connect you? This is a great question. It depends. It really depends. If you have somehow met that faculty member before, let's say you went to one of their events and you asked a question, that's a great way to connect with a professor, by the way. Or you've taken a class with them before, something like that, I would email them directly. You can say, hey, I've taken your class, or I've, attended one of your events or something like that. You've never met this faculty member before, but you want to connect. It depends how much you know about them. And for example, if you know that they're a very busy faculty member and they're working with many graduate students, maybe you should ask someone at admissions. You should contact them and say, it depends why you're contacting this professor, right? You can contact someone at admissions and say, hey, I'm interested in working with Dr. So-and-so. I'm interested in applying to this program. These are my research interests, and I'm wondering if you would be able to connect us. I would love for the opportunity to be able to discuss with them. One, are they taking on more graduate students with the year that I'll be applying? That's relevant. Even if your research interests really align, but they don't have the capacity to take on more graduate students, then it's not likely that you'll be able to be accepted to work with them, right? That's basically what you want to know when you're contacting professors is, do you have the capacity to take on more students? Would you be interested in my research interests? Like, do they align? This is not the same across the board in every discipline and every department. It differs. For some of you, you will actually be working in a lab. And so, there's only a certain amount of students that are available or spaces that are available in a lab. And if it's full, or if that project is closing or the lab is closing, then it's just not going to align for you. So this is a great question in the sense of, how can I make sure to make that connection so that I know if this is actually a program I should be applying to, because there's room for me here, and there will be for the foreseeable future. So that is how I recommend contacting a faculty member. Another thing I will say is that, some faculty members get a lot of emails and they can't respond to all of them. It's really up to you if you feel comfortable sending a friendly reminder, probably a month or at least a few weeks later. I usually will, because at the end of the day, I feel like if I'm emailing you something just like without the pressure of you responding and just genuinely asking a question, I don't see it as harmful. And I'm comfortable just saying a friendly follow-up. And that's because many professors have told me, please follow up with me. I get so many emails. I do want to respond to my students, but sometimes I need a gentle reminder. So, but also do know some professors, as just their own I guess, disposition towards responding to graduate students. They do not respond to any interested or incoming applicants until they have been accepted. So just be aware of that and don't take it personal. Some professors just feel that to keep a very even, equal playing field, they will not respond to anyone. So just know that, and that's okay. How to shortlist universities which have good MEM or MIS courses with some TA availability. So if this was your question, please let me know what MEM or MIS stands for. Now, even if I don't know what that is, I'm going to try and answer this question the best that I can. So you're shortlisting universities which have TA availability in courses. That's kind of a tricky thing to predict because TA availability depends, of course, on which courses they're offering and how many students are registering for those courses, as in how big they will be. And that is something that really only people in admissions and in the registrar office will know, because they are working through all of that planning, you know? For instance, in my department, there are some courses where we will always need like 10 or 12 TAs. And there are others where we might need 2, but we might need 4, but we don't know because we don't know how many people are registering. So, as far as having a short list of which universities will have a plethora of the courses that you're trying to be a TA in, you can perhaps look at the course catalog and see, you know, how often they've been offering those courses. You can contact someone in admissions or at the registrar and ask about that. But I just personally, in my experience, I have never gotten a clear answer about that, those types of things, because they don't even know until students register. But I have a feeling that this question might be more so about trying to secure TA-ships within your graduate study or your time, you know, in graduate school, which depends on the department and the university that you're at. Also know and keep in mind that you don't always get to TA in the classes that you want. Sometimes you end up TAing in things that are not very relevant to what you study or what you do, but close enough that you can be of support. I've TA'd in some things that are not very relevant to my research at all, but I can TA in it because I have taken classes in it, or it was a part of my undergraduate study, you know? So if you ask this question, please try if you can clarify what it is that you're really, what MIS is and what MEM is, please. It would be great if you can share sample SOPs for masters in any STEM program. That would be great. I don't have any on hand, but Magoosh does have wonderful SOP and personal statement resources, like really good ones in the sense of, you know, drafting from or working through, workshopping through draft 1 all the way to your pretty much polished and finished draft, as well as expert feedback for your essays. I don't have any on hand. I wish that I did. But even if you have samples, there, you know, it's not so much the sample that you need, it's the plan that you need. You need your own original plan. And then the rest is just like mechanics, you know, like what makes a great essay, which is that hook, but a captivating and not too distracting hook, a strong thesis of what it is that you are writing about, why you want to go to graduate school, and then filling in all of the other components of that are going to demonstrate why you are an applicant that is ready. So that's my recommendation on that, because I don't have any on hand. Okay, some roadblocks. I'm jumping into the last couple questions and then I will get into the Q&A here. Okay, so hang tight. We're going to have time for these. All right. Yes, thank you, Patricia, for dropping that in the chat. Okay, so I just want to highlight that these are what you all have said are your biggest roadblocks. So if you're feeling this as well, let me know in the chat and we will be sure to address whatever it is that people here in this webinar are experiencing as well. Planning and the personal statement, people are saying that's a pretty big roadblock. I completely agree. I think the personal statement is the hardest part yeah, of the application. Personal statement or a statement of purpose. Okay, someone said starting SOP and personal statements when the prompts aren't available yet. Absolutely. I would say if the prompt is not available yet, just start brainstorming. Just put down those major ideas, those things that you basically know you would put into a personal statement because they're relevant to who you are as a scholar, why it is that you're choosing graduate school at this time. I mean, whether you know the prompt or not, those are just things that you can start to kind of flesh out, start to develop the language for yourself and start to brainstorm. Okay, someone said, I'm just scared of rejection. All of these master's programs look so daunting with their impressive alumni accomplishments. The SOP, PS, like everyone, is also giving me problems. Absolutely. Thank you to whoever posted this because rejection is real. And I will say, not to scare anyone, but rejection is something you also will go through during graduate school. So I say that because you will be applying to fellowships, research assistantships. You will be applying for grants and you will not get every single one. And you will receive letters of rejection that tell you why your project is not developed enough or just not relevant to the funding, all of these different things. And you will feel it. You know, I know that was probably one of the hardest parts for me, was realizing that rejection is a part of the process and every single feedback that you get is valuable. I have had experiences where a year or two after the initial rejection letter, I felt grateful because that rejection letter was what helped me get closer and create a more concise and a more like relevant research project to what it is I'm actually looking for versus the funding, if that makes any sense. I hope it does. So if you're afraid of rejection, it's a great thing that you know that that's what you're afraid of, so that you can start to look at it from a different perspective, because you probably will get rejected from some schools, but you will get into some. And even if you don't get into any, that's okay. There are many people who do not get in the first year that they apply. I hate to say it, that could happen, but you know what? Sorry, Siri and my laptop is talking to me. It's okay. Some people take longer to get into school, but if you do get into the program that you're looking for, it's worth it. It really, really is. I think it's much better to be in a program that you fit into, that is what you're looking for, meets your standards, than to just take the first one you can get. And then, like I said, the rejection will continue. But really, it's feedback that's going to help you become a better scholar, a better researcher. So yeah, I have a soft spot for that. Rejection is very real, but you kind of get used to it in a way. Like you just understand that it's just a part of it, you know? Okay, this says, I need help with my university shortlisting and also my timeline planning. I'm confused on how to plan everything. I hear you. I will say Magoosh has wonderful resources in regards to this, of developing your timeline, kind of planning backwards, or, reverse engineering all of this. So if you're looking for support with that, I would look on our website about that, because this is actually really challenging. Especially if you're working or you're in school, meeting that timeline can be really challenging. So I really recommend developing a system that's going to help you see how much time do you actually have, to prepare for the SOP. How much time can you dedicate? 2 months, a month, 3 months? So now you know how many drafts that you can really do. How many people can you get to read it? How much time do you have for the GRE or whichever exam that you're taking? That's all really, really important. So really important to bring that to the surface. Okay, so those are the questions I have from Discord. Let me know how you're all feeling in the chat if you can. Has this been helpful so far? I'm going to jump into these questions, okay, in the Q&A. Haley says, what is the most important thing on the application? I will say that I do believe that the essays are the most important, but as we know, GRE scores, transcripts, all of that is really important too. You cannot sidestep that. But if you have a really strong essay that demonstrates why you're ready for graduate school, that shows your original research interests, and that really advocates for you, there have been times where those essays can really Do some of the heavy lifting that perhaps is not represented in your GRE or your transcripts. So that's why I think those essays are really a valuable time to make a strong first impression and to captivate your reader. Really, it's a time to connect, because numbers only do so much on paper, but a compelling essay can make the admissions committee really interested in you as a student, and that's really valuable. So that's what I would say. I graduated about a year ago. This is from Yamil. I'm having trouble finding people to write recommendation letters. Do you have any suggestions? This is a great question. A year ago is not that long. Some people graduated 5-10 years ago, so you're in a good pool, I would say. My recommendation with this is to reach out to every professor that you took a class with that you got a B or above, particularly those you got A's in. And you need to draft an email that is going to make it as easy as possible for that professor to remember who you are. So you would introduce yourself. You would say, hi, my name, or dear Professor so-and-so, my name is, and I took these courses with you. Tell them why you enjoyed the course. Tell them how it was influential in your journey to now apply to graduate school. Tell them why you're applying to graduate school. And then you may ask something like, I would, I'm interested to know if you would be available or able to write a letter of recommendation for me. I would need it by this date, and you would submit it here, make that available for them. And then just wait and see if they contact you. You'd be surprised how many professors really do want to support their former students. And after you remind them which classes you took with them, which class you took with them, or in which capacity you worked with them, you'll toggle their memory a little bit, and they might be able to do that for you. So I wouldn't give up. I know it's kind of like daunting or a little weird to send out these requests to professors you haven't seen in a long time and you feel don't remember you, but you got to do it. So that's my recommendation. Okay, I'm going to jump to Patricia's question because this is relevant to the one I just answered. They say, it's been 13 years since I've been in the classroom. The graduate program I'm interested in has nothing to do with my undergraduate studies. Reference letters don't have to come from past professors, do they? That is dependent on the program. I don't know which program or what kind of institution you're applying to, but they usually will say in the application portal or when it is that you're getting ready to apply, who those letters of rec need to come from. It will say that. So check that out. If it says strictly professors, then yes. You can also contact the department and let them know about your situation and see what they have to say about that. Because sometimes these websites are not updated. Always know that sometimes the department website is not updated. What is the best time to contact the professors for fall 2023? I would say about now, because we're getting into the fall very, very soon. Look at those institutions, the programs or the departments you're applying to, and see when their first week of school is. Contact them then, because they're the least busy that they'll be in the whole quarter, or contact them a week or so before, because they're just kind of getting back to their emails and they're probably not as swamped as they will be a few weeks into the quarter. So definitely as soon as you can. Hey, this is Sharik here from India. Hello, Sharik. I'm super excited to apply this year for a program. Just a quick question here. How do we sort the universities we're applying into? I have some good ones based on internet, but not sure about the same. Currently focusing on MS and financial engineering program. Thanks. Okay, how do we sort universities? How do you find that university, especially if you're coming in from another country? How do you find where you're supposed to be? I mean, you're looking at a huge pool. The best way to do it is to not look at the universities. Look at what it is that you want to study and why. Get very clear on that. Why do you need the MS in financial engineering? Once you know that, what it is that you particularly want to do with that, what about the field right now is particularly interesting to you, compelling to you, worth it for you to get this degree? and then start to look for the programs that fulfill that. So personally, for me, I would not look at the university as much in graduate school as I would look at the department and how distinguished and developed and well-funded that department is. I think when we're an undergrad, we tend to look at the university, the surrounding environment, all of those things, the prestige of the university, and that's important in graduate school too. But at the end of the day, you are working within that department and with the resources that that department has. And that's your reality. That's your day-to-day. Of course, the city, the state, the weather, all those things are important too. They definitely are. But if we're looking just at that, it can get very overwhelming because the United States has wonderful universities, and we could be in Miami, we could be in California, we could be in LA, we could be in like Boulder, Colorado. It's just so much that it's really important to look at the department because that's going to be your day-to-day life. And those are the people you're working with. Those are the intimate relationships you're building. And those intimate relationships are also what you leverage when you're getting into the job market, because those are the people who are going to vouch for you, to make real connections for you. All of those things really matter. So once you understand what it is, why it is that you're applying, what are you looking for? What type of training do you want? Do you want to publish papers? Do you want to, I don't know enough about financial engineering to really make examples out of this, but I hope you understand what I'm getting at. Be very clear on what it is that you're looking for so that you can spot it when you're looking at universities. Okay. And start to make a list and start to really look at the different components of each program that are valuable and important to you so that you can weigh them out. And so that you can develop a shorter list of the top 3 or 5 that you'll be applying to. I hope that was helpful. Sharik, if not, please let me know in the chat and elaborate if I can support you better on that. Okay. Carolyn, is it better to ask for recommendation letters in person or over email? If you can ask for them in person, that would be great. You can meet with a professor and say, oh, I'd love to drop into your office hours, or if in some way or capacity you have them, they're available to you, I would do it in person, but always follow up with an email after because people forget. So do it in person. Let's say you meet with your professor and you discuss the letter of recommendation and they agree. After that meeting, I would follow up through an email and saying, hey, thank you so much for meeting with me and for agreeing to write the letter of recommendation. This is the date that it is due at this. Usually when you're applying, you will send a request from within the portal that will be sent to the professor. They'll send them a link where they will submit that letter of recommendation. So you would let them know like the procedure of how they would submit it, because people don't really write hard copy letters and mail them anymore. So always follow up afterwards so that that professor has that information of where and when to submit on hand, because it just makes it easier for them. And that way you can reference it and be like, oh, I sent you that email. You can send a follow-up. I do recommend sending a friendly reminder about a week before the deadline or 2 weeks before the deadline, just to make sure, just to get a confirmation from them that they're still doing it and all of that. Okay. I hope that was helpful, Carolyn. Sean says, off the top of your head, do you know of any sites where private scholarships are offered for master's degrees? Yes, I do. Give me 1 second. I'm trying to remember because I am subscribed to this service and I think it's a wonderful one. But you know what? If we're going to talk about funding and stuff, there are so many resources out there. Okay. But the one that I use, and of course, this is for the United States. I don't know where you're at, Sean, but I use ProFellow. I'm just looking at the email I just got from them today. Yes, I use ProFellow. I really recommend checking that out. They have opportunities, scholarships, all types of things you would never think of. That's a good place to start. Then the department, or excuse me, the institution that you're going to, they have resources too. They usually have their own like search engine, their own like collection of fellowships and scholarships and all those things that they utilize and recommend to their students. And typically, this is really cool, most institutions have like a funding advisor, something like that, or multiple, that you can get in contact with and discuss your resources. Like they're an expert on that for the institution, or, just like the type of university that you're at, right? So I would definitely look at the institution that you're thinking of applying to, or the institutions that you're thinking of applying to, and see if they have like a financial advisor like that for graduate students or interested applicants, and see if you can. Yes, I'm going to put the link on the chat. See if you can speak to someone. Okay. Okay. I got the link here. So I hope that was helpful, Sean. Let me know if you need a little bit more information on that. But ProFellow is where I go. They have a lot of resources. I will say though, I'm not entirely certain about the master degree component. I know that there are a lot, but I've always looked for ones for PhDs, and it's a little bit different, but you can definitely start at ProFellow. Okay, do GRA or GTA students have to have GRA to get or not? That depends on the program you're applying to and the institution you're applying to. They all have their own policies about that. It's not a universal answer. So I would say definitely check or contact admissions at the university institution that you're applying to. If the department mentions that they waive GRE, should I submit it to get GRA or GTA? No. If the department mentions that they waived it, they will probably let you know if you need something else to replace that. I would contact the department. Always get the direct answer from them. Double, triple check. Are TOEFL and GRE weighted much during the admission process? Weighted. Well, during the admissions process, the role that will play is dependent on the department. So for instance, I took the GRE. My research has absolutely nothing to do with mathematics, right? It's entirely humanities and philosophy. My department did not look at math too much. They had a like desired score, but it wasn't really very, very critical. So that's an example for my department, right? It'll be different per department. The best way you can really get those questions answered is to speak to the admissions coordinator at the department, or speak to the chair of the department and ask them, like, during the admissions process, what role does TOEFL and GRE play? And they might tell you something like it plays a critical role and just get the highest score you can. Sometimes they just say things like that, and it's true, just get the highest score that you can. But a follow-up question you could ask could be something like, this is my GRE score, this is my GPA. Is this competitive, or does this meet the standard of your previous admitted applicants? See where I'm going right there? You're trying to know previously in the past couple of years, is this kind of around the score and the is this GRE score and is this GPA competitive in this department now? Okay, I hope that's helpful. Should I work harder on GRE, SOP, etc., or to build my profile better to be considered for the course? If this attendee is still here, please elaborate on this. I don't understand this question. The GRE and the statement of purpose are something you should definitely focus on and work hard on. As far as building your profile better, I'm not entirely sure what this means. If you could elaborate on that, that would be helpful for this question. Okay, I have only one school in mind. Is it possible to apply multiple times in different areas in many years? Well, you can definitely apply as many times as you want. I don't know if, oh, in different areas, you mean like different departments? Yes, you can apply to different departments. You would have to have a very different application. But you can apply if that's what you mean by different areas, different departments, absolutely. And over many years, yes, you can apply as many times as you want. I hope that answers the question. If you need more elaboration on that, please let me know. Okay. Sean says, what was your work experience before applying? I have gotten a lot of feedback that you should work for a couple years before MBA in case you want a career shift, and a lot of schools require it. How long would you suggest working before applying? This is a great. Can you all hear me? Zoom just told me that like my mic was, you can hear. Okay, good. So this is a great question, Sean. So I do recommend, if you're going to go into a master's program, I do recommend, because right after the master's, you're going straight into the workforce, and it's expected that you would apply that master's degree to whatever career you go into. So I think it's a great idea to work before applying in the field, just to make sure that's what you want, to make organic connections, all of that. I didn't work in my relevant field before applying because I'm pursuing a PhD. So it's 7 years, 6 to 7 years, and it kind of builds in a little bit of work experience in there, because eventually you will teach some courses and you will be a TA and you will be developing your own research. And if to be a professor after the PhD, that's what you would be doing. So you can't really get work experience as a professor before you apply for the PhD anyways, but that's different from what you're discussing, Sean. So I think that is a great piece of advice that someone gave you, to work a couple years before. I would recommend it. It does make for a stronger applicant, because it, not always, but I do think it definitely adds some depth to your application, because you demonstrate that you are committed and that you have demonstrated your interest over the years. So if you can do it, I highly recommend it. Also, it would give you that peace of mind to know that that's really what you're interested in doing. So I hope that was helpful, Sean. How much in advance should I ask old professors for letters of rec? My rule of thumb is like 3 months. Yeah, because they're very busy. Professors are busy. They get asked for many letters of recommendation during one application cycle, and every quarter, probably in semester. So, like if 2 months probably at the latest, but 3 months if possible. If you're really tight with a professor, you work together, that's your graduate advisor or something like that, you do start to ask it for shorter time windows, because sometimes fellowships are just coming and things like that. But if this is for graduate school, at least 2 to 3 months. That's my recommendation. I'm sure other people have done a much smaller window, but that's usually what I do, because one, out of courtesy for them, that they're very busy. Two, because you want a good letter. I don't want the first draft letter. I want something that they wrote, put away for a week or two, came back to it, updated with after our conversations. You know what I'm saying? A strong letter of recommendation goes a long way. So you don't want them to rush it. And you also want to do it in a way where they feel like, you respect their time, you understand that it takes time, and that you are giving them plenty of time to do it, because they also, have a lot of work. Professors work a lot. What if it has been over 5 years since you've graduated from undergrad? How will you get professors to write a letter of recommendation? So I would still recommend reaching out to them with the format I had previously mentioned, which is stating your name, which classes you took with them, the grade that you got, the work that you did, something like that. And if they would be interested. Now, some of them might be, some of them might say, oh, I do remember that year because you provided the details. I took this course with you in the winter. We read this and that. I wrote a paper on this, and it has been influential in my desire to pursue this degree of which I am now applying for. When you craft an email like that, you help them remember you and place you. And if they're a professor who wants to write these letters of recommendation for their students, they want to see students in this field go on to graduate school, it's very likely that they'll be interested in writing for you. Even if it's just with the information that you provide for them, to say, I do remember this student, they did do well. And we need more like them in this field, or, I'm hopeful to see them go on to graduate school. Many of them will be interested in doing that. Now, if you don't get any feedback from them, or you don't get any response from them, then that is when I would contact the department, and I would contact them directly and basically let them know your situation. I graduated over 5 years ago. I'm not in contact with any professors, or, I'm only in contact with one. And, the recommendation is at least 3 letters. What do you recommend? And see what kind of conversation you can generate with the admissions coordinator of the department, or the chair of the department, someone that you can speak to once you get an idea of how admissions works in that department. I hope that was helpful. That is a very tricky situation though, and you are not alone. Many people experience that. When I email professors, should I mention GRE and TOEFL scores in the email? Depends why you're emailing them. If it's just to connect and to see if they are taking on more students and interested in working with you, I don't really think it's necessary, unless for the department that you're working for, that's very important for them, the GRE score. But I wouldn't mention it really, because at the end of the day, that professor is not judging you on your GRE. They kind of want to know, and it's not that they're judging you, but they're not basing their interest in working with you off of your GRE. They base it on who you are as a graduate student, what your research interests are. And then the GRE plays a role for the admissions committee when they are comparing applicants. Sometimes, just to be transparent, you have 3 applicants that are very competitive and very compelling in their research interests and their essays. And at the end of the day, it just comes down to who had the more competitive GRE score. That could happen because it's one indicator of readiness, or, some departments see it that way. So that's when the GRE plays a role. But I wouldn't say that it does in your just, professional relationships with professors. I hope that's helpful. I am confused as to why we need to reach out to professors of the program that we're applying to. Could you please elaborate on that? Absolutely. Okay, so it does depend on the program that you're applying to. Every program is different in how they train their graduate students. By training, I mean, what is the actual program, right? So for instance, my example, my training, I have a committee of about 4 professors. I have 2 co-chairs and then 2 other professors. This committee is responsible for reviewing my dissertation and basically approving of my dissertation for me to receive my doctorate. So these are the professors I'm working with. They are the ones who will either say, yes, you completed your degree. This is within the, the rigor and the caliber of this institution and this department. You now have your PhD. They are the ones who will do that. So those are the professors I'm working with. Now, out of these 4 professors on my committee, I knew one of them before I applied. The others I met throughout graduate school. So these relationships, as you can see, are very influential in the overall, basically, experience of my program and the success of my studies. So that is why you would reach out to professors prior to applying, because you will need a graduate mentor, whether that is the chair of your dissertation committee, or that is someone whose lab you are working in that is a part of your training. That's kind of the difference between graduate school and undergrad, in a sense, is that you develop a professional relationship with a professor or 2 or 3 or 4 who are your mentors. They provide the training for you. It's not like they're not holding your hand through the whole thing, but they are approving of your work. So reaching out to professors is important because, especially for PhDs, And Sarmad, I don't know if you're applying for a PhD or a master's, but especially for PhDs, if you're interested in working with a professor at an institution because you have similar research interests, if they're not available to work with you for whatever reason, you probably won't get into the program. Does that make sense? Okay, Sarmad is working on an MBA. So it might be a little bit different for you, but I'm pretty sure you still have a committee. I'm pretty sure that for masters in business, you still have a committee because you still will write a thesis. It's not as big as the dissertation, right? But you still will write a thesis that needs to be approved of by your professors. So that is why you would reach out to make these formal professional connections prior to applying, so that when they get that application and Sarmad can say, I have reached out to Dr. So-and-so who is working on X, Y, and Z, of which my research interests align. Thus, I am very interested in working at this institution or, pursuing my master's at this institution because my research interests will be supported here. You demonstrate that you are an applicant who has done your research and who is looking to make real connections with the faculty there, and that you're ready, that you're prepared, that you know why you are interested in that program because of the real people who are doing work there. I hope that makes sense. Okay, cool. I know it's kind of weird. Like I didn't understand it either. I was like, why would I reach out to professors? Like, it's because the dynamic in graduate school is very different from undergrad. In undergrad, you're just taking all these courses and fulfilling them, but you don't have someone who is necessarily deciding if you have completed your thesis or your dissertation and that you are now a master in your fields or a doctor in your fields. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, those professional connections and relationships are very important. Now, also know, I just want to make this very clear, not everybody makes connections before they apply to a program, and many people get into programs without ever making that connection with a professor. It happens. So just know that it's not like an unspoken rule per se, but it definitely can help you. I would say that it would not harm you to have great professional relationships at the department that you're applying to. It would not harm you, but it's not always necessary. Okay, it's not always feasible for everyone. I just want to make that very clear. So if you feel like, I don't have any connections with professors at the departments I'm applying to, that's okay. A lot of people don't, but it does help. Okay, I'm going to stop elaborating on that. Hopefully that was helpful. If everything else on my application is very good, but my GRE scores are slightly below or at average, will that ruin my chances of admission? No, not at all. Slightly below or at average, it's not going to ruin the chance, especially if you're at average. If you're slightly below, I still would say that it wouldn't ruin it, because strong letters of recommendation and strong essays will really go a long way. So definitely say still apply. If you can take the GRE one more time and bump it up even just a few points, if that's feasible for you, I would say definitely do it. But if it's not feasible for you, if you're at the average or just a smidgen below, I would definitely still apply. But I would also, apply being mindful that, those essays need to be quite strong and polished, and just be aware of that. Okay, great. Thank you. Glad that was helpful. Will getting a recommendation from the chair of my department set me apart from other applicants? Yes, absolutely it would. Definitely. If you can get a letter of recommendation from the chair of the department, that would be wonderful. Yes, it will. I had a letter of recommendation, not from the chair, but from, an influential professor in the department who was a full professor. And I think that helped me a lot. Yes, it's a great resource to have. Oh, thank you. Okay, great. Great. Okay. Do we have any other questions? Has this been helpful? Is there anything else? I'm going to jump through the chat here. Oh, we have another question here. Okay, Juan says, what are some of the things you would mention in your admission essay? Well, it definitely depends on the program. I always say that depends on the program, but it's very real. Depends on the program. What type of research are you doing? What type of department is this? But as far as, and then admission essay is a little general. So sometimes there is a statement of purpose, a personal statement, or sometimes there is a research proposal. I think I see that one a little bit less, the research proposal, but statement of purpose, personal statement. This is kind of a lot for me to go into with the 4 minutes we have left. I will say Magoosh has some wonderful resources for this component of admissions, the essays, which I think is probably the most challenging and probably the most influential. So if you feel that you need more support, definitely check out our resources at Magoosh. But things I would definitely mention in these essays are, why am I applying? Why this institution? Why this department? More on the department. What it is that you will be doing, what it is that you hope to be doing, as in, because it depends on if it's a master's or a PhD, do you want to be working in the lab? Do you want to be publishing? Do you hope to be a professor after? If you have that information available, because I would mention it. And then as far as the bulk of that essay is like, what prepares you for this now? What did you do in undergrad, or what have you been doing in the workforce, or how are you prepared for this? Why are you pursuing this now? Especially if it's a PhD, because that's a pretty big commitment. And so it's important that you're able to demonstrate why it is that you're applying, that you're ready for that kind of commitment, So I hope that's helpful. But definitely your thesis, why it is that you're applying, why are you interested and excited about this? And then what prepares you? And then, the rest of that kind of depends on if it's the statement of purpose or the personal statement and what type of program you're applying to. So I hope that's helpful, Juan, but also definitely check out other resources Magoosh has and other webinars where we have some where we do focus on the essays. So keep a lookout for that. Circling back to Sean's question about the funding and scholarship websites, could you please share the link here? Absolutely. Okay, so this is ProFellow. I would subscribe to them because they offer really cool resources. Sometimes they have like writing workshops, essay development workshops, resume workshops, like live events. And then of course they have a huge scholarship and fellowship search engine resource. And that's like, really, really recommend that. Okay, everyone, I hope that was helpful and useful in some way. I just want to say that every department is different and they are changing, especially with what the world has been going through recently. So always, I'll drop the ProFellow link again. Always double, triple check with the department. Don't take anything I say as rule of the land or law of the land, because the department, absolutely. Ugochi, I don't know how to say your name, but it's very pretty. Or I don't, yes, anyways, so always contact the department because they will have the most up-to-date information for you. I also want to say best of luck on your journey and have some grace. Oh, great. Okay, I'm glad I said it good. Have some grace and patience with yourself. It's challenging. It is a challenging process, but if you plan it out and you break it up, you're gonna be just fine. And at Magoosh, we always believe that if you want to be at graduate school, then you belong at graduate school. Absolutely. So I hope to see you all again. We have more webinars and we have more events like this, and we're also on Discord. So drop in there for questions and other resources from other students who are applying too. And I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful day wherever you are in the world. And I hope to see you again. Yay. Thank you all for joining. It was so nice and so cool that you all are all over. Okay, I hope it was useful. You all have such beautiful names. Ankita, that's so pretty. Juliet, beautiful. Jose Pablo. Shantae, okay. Very cool, everyone. Take really good care. And I hope to see you all again eventually. And do know, as we're getting into what I call application season in the fall, we have a lot more resources. Okay, so this is not the last time that we'll be available to you all. We'll definitely be having some writing resources, and you can get those essays reviewed by an admissions expert. So don't feel alone. We are here to support you, and we want to see you in graduate school if that's where you want to be. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna log off. I hope you all have a beautiful, beautiful day or night or whatever time of day it is for you. Okay. Goodbye, everyone. This webinar will be posted on our websites, probably within the next day or so. You're talking about this webinar, right? For the question that just popped in? Okay. Okay. Goodbye, everyone.